Welcome to the Tough Decisions Network for Entrepreneurs. I'm Dan Hanford, and my wife, Dennae, and I interview successful people sharing stories behind tough decisions that they've had to make along their journey as an entrepreneur. Before we get started, let's hear from one of our sponsors. Have you ever thought about investing in real estate, but find yourself so busy that you don't have time for it? Do you have FOMO, which is the fear of missing out? At HanfordCapital.com, we help investors with passive real estate investments that project better returns than traditional investment vehicles such as the stock market. If you'd like to find out more about our passive real estate investments, visit HanfordCapital.com. That's HANDFORD Capital.com. We will jump on a call with you to discuss your investment goals and to see if our investments are a good fit for you. This advertisement is not to be construed as an offer or recommendation to buy or sell a security. Visit HanfordCapital.com.
On our podcast today is an entrepreneur and turnaround CEO, Ben Edtl. He's the host of the Beyond Limits podcast. He's the CEO of Dovetail Coffee Roasters and the founder of Waitrainer.com and Edtl Handball. You can learn more about Ben at benedtl.com or on Instagram at ben_Edtl. Thank you, Ben, for being on with us. We're looking forward to our conversation today.
Yeah, same here. Thanks for inviting me. I'm really happy to be on your show.
Go ahead and just give us a brief, filling in of the gaps of how you got to where you are. Obviously, you've started several successful businesses now. So just sort of help us understand where you come from and some of the more interesting experiences that you've had.
Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur not necessarily by choice. It was through process of elimination, and it was the only option really left to me in my early 20s because I basically was ejected out of the public school system in the 10th grade. And I, couldn't sit in class, didn't really like school at all. It was pretty miserable for me. I really couldn't hold a job, and my head was always in the clouds. I was trying to understand, quantum physics while I was, waiting tables or something. So my mind was always thinking about big problems and, just these unsolvable concepts. And I loved learning. I fed myself information and knowledge and was a huge reader in different subjects, not necessarily in business, because I don't read business books, but I love other subjects. And, I failed. I was a complete failure in life. And one thing happened where I was selling cars one summer, and I realized that I could sell any new car in the world from my apartment. And I started doing that. I was brokering new cars. It was when Costco started selling cars to their members. It was when VX.com and Dovetail and some of these companies were coming out and giving people invoices. But I was just negotiating these deals, and I was making at that time in, I would say, like very late 90s, early 2000s, I was making $500 a day selling a car. And I just played a lot of video games and had a good life. And I was, 22 years old. It was crazy. I couldn't believe it. And when that business started to materialize, I had no idea. I come from a family of educators. And so this concept was you go to school, you go to college, you get a job, you buy a house, you have a family, you do this route, and that's the route. And it was like, I might as well have died to my family at that time by not going to college. I might as well have been dead. It was a terrible, terrible thing in my family, but I couldn't follow that. I had to follow my heart.
To me, that would be a tough decision. Now, you might look at it and go, it really wasn't that tough because I had already made the decision. But, obviously to kind of turn your back on what your parents or your family, has been, training you to do all along, and you just basically turn your back on that. So talk to us a little bit about that there.
Honestly, I think what happened was that something developed in me that surrounding like this low self-esteem or this low self-worth, this feeling that I wasn't going to make it, this feeling that, I couldn't, no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't be a good student. I just couldn't in that world, in that environment, in the sit in your desk, do the homework, I couldn't do it. I could understand concepts at the high level very quickly before anybody else. And doing the work was painfully boring to the point where it was almost impossible for me to do. And so I had this low self-esteem and this low self-worth, which frankly still plagues me to this day. I'm creating and building and feverishly, in a way, running from this thing deep inside that says, I'm not worth it. I'm not valuable. And that's sort of my inner battle at 40 years old today.
What was it that caused you to want to go into becoming an entrepreneur?
I could do it, and I could do it. I mean, I'll tell you, the very first business, that car business that I had, that brokering business, the first tangible that I had was I had a customer, but that first tangible was this little file. I didn't even have a computer at the time. I just had this file with a piece of paper that had her information on it, what she wanted. And that was the first thing I could hold in my hand that business was. And it grew from there, but I needed to have that first tangible. And I realized that I could create tangibles out of nothing. I could create something out of nothing. And that was this light, this fire sort of, I caught on fire with it. I was like, oh my God, I don't need anybody else. I can create tangibles out of thin air, out of nothing. And so I realized that I have a gift. And, while I have a lot of defects and issues as a person, I've got these other gifts that I can use and work with. And I was able to inspire other people to join me. And like, same thing, like in third grade, the other kids would be whispering or passing notes. The minute I say something, I'm in the hallway, man, because I couldn't understand that. The reason why is because I can get the entire class out of control in a second. And it's a gift, right? And I have this gift. And you got to use the gifts that God gives you, right? You got to use those gifts. And I think that I've battled in my early 20s, even in my 30s, I battled this fear that my gift wouldn't serve me well and my gift wouldn't serve others well. And there's this fear that entrepreneurs face, I think, or people face, or at least I face, that, man, these are my gifts. I better not use them, because if they don't work, then I don't have any gifts. Then I am who I think I am. And that right there is the challenge, right? And so when you put yourself out there and you say, hey, I got this gift, I'm going to use it. And the universe tests you, right? It says, all right, you're going to use your gifts, but we're going to make you, we're going to make you prove your commitment. And that's what entrepreneurship to me is about. It's about commitment. And in the context of your show, we are paid by the decisions we make and our commitment to those decisions to walk through the outcome, regardless of what they are, because we honestly do not know. And that's the name of the game if you're an entrepreneur.
Walk us through a tough decision that you have had along your journey. And I like to talk about one that I like to call the sore thumb tough decision, if you will. It's a tough decision that you made and it really didn't go so well for you. It was kind of a bad decision in the end. And, I want you to kind of talk to us about that one that really sticks out in your mind about, oh yeah, I can talk an hour about this one. What would be that one tough decision that has a kind of a sore thumb in the back of your head?
I'm laughing here now because there is no one. Look, you give me 100 decisions, I make 98 bad ones. That's just the way that I am. I couldn't even tell you which one. I've made so many stupid decisions that have landed me in evictions and, failed businesses. And I can't even tell you how many decisions I've made that have been terrible. In fact, I've got severe ADD, and it's ADD and HD. And I make decisions. I'm a decision maker. I make knee-jerk decisions. I'm a pretty impulsive person. But I think that one of my big decisions that I made that to this day, I'm kind of like, why did I do that? Was that very first business. I just quit. I just walked away. I didn't sell it. I was doing really good money and I had a very valuable business. I just had no idea. I just got bored one day and stopped after 3 years and went and started this other business that was a complete failure. And like the other business that I started was a really smart business that today I'm seeing out in the world and starting to be developed. The concepts are starting to be developed, but I quit one business of value just because I was bored one day and started another business that cost me, a year of my life and life energy and a lot of money and investors and everything else. And brought in this team and, wasted a bunch of other people's time too on a concept that I just wasn't ready for. But in the process, I learned the secret to becoming wealthy in the world or in this country, which is using equity as currency. And that was the biggest lesson that I learned from that second failure. And so I don't regret it really, but I always think, man, I could have sold that first business. I just never did. But out of that came this amazing understanding of why the government gives us increments of stock and fractional interest, because if we create value in that fractional interest or in that stock, we can trade that for other people's expertise and life energy, and we can build something without using money. And that's what I've done. I build things without using money until we need money, and then we get the money very easily because I know how to build value. So I don't put my money at risk, and it helps me to make good decisions going forward.
How many, entities or enterprises or businesses are you involved with right now?
I mean, right now I've got 3 entities that I'm a majority interest holder in. Like one of them is just sort of for me because I love turnaround stuff. And every once in a while I'll take a turnaround job. And so I use that entity just for that. I own it 100%. It's not like a scalable thing. It's just a kind of a tax thing. And then I have Dovetail Coffee Roasters, which was a turnaround job in early 2017. And the company's been around since 2008. And I do identity transformation is probably how I would say that I do the turnaround work, but that's the fundamental, but everything's connected, right? I see everything as being connected to each other, every aspect of a company. And so I believe that fundamentally that most companies that hit a wall or hit a ceiling is due to they have an identity crisis. I think that's the fundamental problem that those companies are facing. And then from there, then you can start to fix the technical parts of the company, the financial management, the product, the line plans, whatever kind of business it's in. I've done this work in a number of different industries and I love it. I love going in regardless of how big the revenue is. It's usually all fundamentally the same. And I like to turn those things around. I really enjoy that work. But I came into Dovetail Coffee in January 2017 and began the turnaround and I ended up acquiring it. But I'm a majority interest holder, but there's probably 6 or 7 other shareholders. And then also I have a media company and then I have interest or stock in like 2 other companies.
And so what is it that you go through when you try to focus your energies and your efforts? Because, as an entrepreneur, I mean, I almost sometimes think, we've been interviewing, entrepreneurs, we've probably done at least 40 interviews now, 40, 50 interviews now. And one of the running themes in the majority of these entrepreneurs is being not necessarily diagnosed, but, having ADD, or that ADHD.
Yeah, we're similar.
Yeah. And so, I think for people like us that have ADD and need to be focused, a lot of times we get bored with certain things and want to move on to the next thing. So, what have you found that has helped you kind of channel some of your energies and be able to make sure you make the right decision for the next thing coming up? Or what are some strategies that you've done there?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're so right? I mean, entrepreneurs are, we're a special breed of cat. We all have very similar personality traits. And instead of fighting the ADD, I mean, I do take medication every day for it. Don't get me wrong. I couldn't function in life without it, but I have to fight off that boredom and do multiple things. And that's just who I am. And so instead of fighting it, I let it be, right? I mean, if these are desires to keep myself busy and interested by having different things to turn my attention to when one gets stuck or one gets, boring for that moment. I think that's healthy for me. But from a business management standpoint, each one of those companies has to be focused on doing one thing very, very well, or it will fail. The company has to be focused. I don't have to be. I'm the decision maker. And so as a decision maker, if I make the right decisions, I make the right choices for that company, then that company is going to be okay. And the worst thing I think entrepreneurs or merchants do for their businesses is they spread it too thin, too fast, and they don't get traction and they wonder why they're slipping on ice every day. And to get traction, you got to get focused. And so my companies are all operating very focused, highly focused on what they do, and they're doing it really, really well. But I don't have to be focused. I mean, I can telescope in and telescope out. And that's my job. And it helps to have really good people that really like to do, to focus on one thing and build. They're builders. And, when I partner with people like that in these companies, they become very successful.
I think you hit there on a key at the end, which is, people like Dan who have these, and that have these huge visions and they're constantly, jumping from one vision and we have this vision and they need people around them who can take their vision and really put feet to that and, the day in and the day out and get the laser focus. So I think it definitely is about surrounding yourself with those kinds of people so that you can do what you're good at and he can do what he's good at. And then those other people are in their element as well.
Yeah. And it's funny is people from the outside, when they're either want to be entrepreneurs or they're, hearing about entrepreneurs, look, I'm not good at really anything. I mean, the reality is I've got like 1 or 2 skills. And other than that, I mean, you put me to work in my own business and I'm going to fire myself. I mean, that's the way it is. So I need to be where I'm good. And I also need to know where I'm weak. And frankly, I'm weak in a lot of areas, but the people that are strong in all the areas that I'm weak, which I so admire them, I need to be able to get out of their way and go do my job and trust them.
It's very interesting, a lot of the similarities between your story and, my story as well as an entrepreneur. I think the biggest thing that I just took away from that is something that I've struggled with myself, is the fact that, when you talk about a business and a business and being the leader in that organization, having your employees or your team that surround you to be able to support and jump on board with your vision, it doesn't mean that I have to only have one vision. I can have one vision of where I want to take a business, but I can also open up 3 or 4 or 5 other businesses, or have 3 or 4 other different entities that are not even related, that have its own separate vision. And you don't necessarily always just have to stick with just one thing and not just one vision that you have. It doesn't have to be singular. You can have multiple visions and be able to, disperse those visions into multiple companies.
Yeah. And that's like, mommy, where do serial entrepreneurs come from? I mean, that's exactly the point. And I'll tell you this too. Employees, people that work inside companies and generally do kind of the same thing over and over, they execute a process, and they want one thing, that is security. And all we are to them fundamentally is we represent to them security. When the leader's there, people feel secure. Now, the leaders don't have any security. We really don't have that, and we don't need that, right? We want adventure and we want, something new, and we want adventure, right? I mean, so it's very interesting when I take a look from the outside and go, aha, we're all giving each other what we need. And so it's a very interdependent relationship, even though most employees have way more skills than I do.
Well, I'm always talking about, always trying to hire people that are bigger and better and smarter than you, because, if all you're doing is hiring people that are dumber than you, then you're never going to get anywhere. That's
a fact.
You got to surround yourself with people that are, 10 times smarter than you.
Yeah, exactly. And, and smarts is interesting because there's so many different types of intelligence, right? And what our abilities need to be, if you're cut out for the job, right, for the entrepreneurship job, we just need to be able to see certain things that others don't, and differentiate and find a new way to do something or solve a problem some way or another that hasn't yet really been solved before. And if we can do that, then we're successful. And if we need people to help execute, at least I do, I really, the better executives that I have, the more likely that my visions are going to be realized. And also too, we have to let go a little bit of what we ultimately see, how we see things playing out, because there's so much opportunity from those smart people that we bring in, or that decide to join us, that they see that builds something to where it keeps that adventurous, where I'm like, God, I wonder how this is actually going to turn out. There's a couple things that I know for a fact, like inherently, intrinsically inside me, that this is what this company needs to succeed. It's like 2 or 3 things. And then everything else, like how that is accomplished, a lot of times always amazes me, the way that people solve problems, and those experts that we have around us, how they solve these problems and walk the trail. Like, I was just in a business meeting today with some of our A-class shareholders, and it was our monthly finance meeting, and our CFO was like, brought something up, and it cracked me up, because I was like, damn, that's genius. And I joked with the rest of the team. I said, man, I could draw a map, but I don't know if I could walk a trail. It's one of those things, but you have to be able to have both. An organization has to have both in order to be successful. We can't do it alone. There's no way in the world.
Yeah, a really good analogy there. I like that. I could draw a map, but you can't walk a trail. And and like you said, it really takes both to make it go. Can you talk to our listeners just a little bit about maybe a book or a resource that you would recommend to them, whether they're considering being an entrepreneur, or maybe something more specific that's helped you with your decision-making strategy?
Yeah. I mean, like I said earlier, I don't read business books. It's like, I can't do it. I mean, I try, because I'm like, God, that sounds like a great book. And I can get about 8 pages in, and I'm just, I can't do it. I mean, it's not interesting. But I do read lots of other stuff that's completely outside of the world of business. And I use that information to make connections, and it aids me in my decision-making. And a lot of it is like either spiritual or scientific. I read a lot of stuff about quantum physics and about cosmology, about ancient religion and ancient wisdom. Those are the tools that I bring to work every day. I'll tell you that right now. The information, the data, the how-to, it's in the universe. I believe that all of that data is in the universe. All of our collective experience is in the universe. And we can tap into that and intuitively know what to do. And sometimes there's, we got to be careful about how much weight we put on our advisor's advice if it's based on someone else's book. Because here's the thing. My philosophy is, let's look at Mark Zuckerberg, right? Here's a kid who's at an Ivy League college, never had a business in his life, and then starts Facebook, right? And then now look where he is. Like, is it because he made every right decision? Is it because he knew what to do somehow? Like, how did he get that information, right? How did he get that information? It's like meant to be. And sometimes our failures are meant to be, like I explained earlier on the show, that I made this terrible choice and it led to this knowledge that I've been using ever since. And this experience and guys like, Zuck or, Gates or Jobs, they go out and they create these behemoth world-changing companies with no experience at all. They, did they read a bunch of business books? I don't know. I don't really hear that they did. But the reality is that I think by understanding the creative laws of reality better, that helps me the most in business, because I am a creative. I'm literally a conduit, a channel to invent and create new things, put them in the world, and give other human beings, a unique experience and a unique perspective around that. And that's my job.
Well, I want you to, shift gears here a little bit and talk to us about the most exciting thing that you've done with the money that you've made so far, whether it's a place you've traveled or an item that you've purchased.
Yeah, I love travel. That's just, hands down one of the favorite things to do. Other than that, we have kids and bills and expenses. A lot of it goes to, being a parent. But I would say, like, traveling throughout Europe and, having that experience and experiencing that is probably one of my most favorite things to do, to dump money in, is an experience.
And what's one item that's on your bucket list right now, whether it's that place you want to travel to or thing you want to buy?
Oh my God, the bucket list. Some of the listeners are gonna, cringe when they hear this, but I want to go to a NASCAR race. That is on my list. I am not gonna lie. We're in Northwest. We're in the Pacific Northwest. There's no NASCAR. There's a street track in California, but that's boring. NASCAR should be on an oval. Yes.
That's funny. That's definitely a first on our bucket list here is to go watch a NASCAR game.
Yeah, yin and yang, man. Let's read some quantum physics and then go to a NASCAR race, right? But that's kind of, this is who I am, I guess. I don't know.
Although, Ben, knowing you and the ADD and getting bored, you're going to get really bored real quick watching a bunch of guys drive around in cars in circles 500 times.
Hey, I watch it every Sunday, and I'll tell you right now, it ain't boring when they're going 200 miles an hour, 5 inches.
That's funny.
If I want to see corners, I'll watch F1, but usually it's in the middle of the night, so,
Well, thank you so much, Ben, for taking some time to be with us on the podcast today. Yeah. I want you to let our listeners know how they can reach out to you if they want to follow you more, kind of, get some more information about you.
Yeah, you can always go to my website. It's benedtl.com, benedtl.com. You can also go to Instagram and follow me there at ben_edtl. And of course, on LinkedIn, I put a lot of different content on LinkedIn than I do on Instagram. And so LinkedIn's really more like business focused and Instagram's more, just humanities focused, right? So I'm on LinkedIn at Ben Edtl. And then you can also listen to my podcast, Beyond Limits, and that's on iTunes, SoundCloud, and on my website and everything else. So Beyond Limits is the name of the podcast. We put one out every week.
Great. Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much, Ben, for taking some time to be with us. Look forward to having you on a future podcast and future episode as you continue to grow.
Can't wait. And good luck to you guys too. I've listened to your shows and I'm really impressed. And I think you guys are going to go a long way.
Well, thank you so much, Ben. Have a good day.
Right on. You too. Bye now.
Bye. Thank you for listening to the Tough Decisions Network. Be sure to visit toughdecisions.net to gain access to show notes for this episode and to join our free weekly entrepreneur email where we will send you news about the latest technology for your business, inspiring quotes, and the latest books for entrepreneurs. That's toughdecisions.net.